What's up, guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, we're going to take a look at the NFL Week 2 slate on Draftkings and Yahoo. We're going to break down these 13 games once again. I put out my first look video for Week 2 earlier this week on Monday. I'm recording this video late Thursday night. I'm going to post this video on YouTube Friday morning. This is going to be my full breakdown of the Week 2 slate. We're going to go position by position once again. As the week's gone on, I've really been able to, kind of cut down my player pool, really key in on the guys that I feel like I'm going to be playing in my lineups come Sunday. So we will go through each position and talk about the guys that I like most. We'll probably hit on about 5 or 6 guys mainly. For running back and receiver, we'll talk about a few more options, but for quarterback, 5 or 6 guys. For tight end, probably 5 or 6. We'll do a little bit more for running backs and receivers. We might even hit on some defenses, towards the end of the video, but mainly quarterback through tight end. That's really where I want to spend our time. So before we do get started, guys, looking at this slate, as always, I would appreciate it if you would hit that like button down below. If you are new to the channel, be sure to click the subscribe button as well. I do upload NFL content every week to this YouTube channel. I'm putting out 3 to 4 NFL videos a week. I'm getting up videos for the showdown slates, for Thursday night, for Monday night. I'm obviously getting up videos for the main slate as well. My first look video, my full video, my full breakdown, which is what you're watching now. So hit that subscribe button. Be sure to click the notification bell as well, so that way you do get notified every time I upload. You'll never miss out on any of my new videos. And lastly, if you would like, I do have more content available on Patreon. That is linked down below in the description. You can check out the Patreon and see all that I have to offer over there. I will have a full breakdown article for this Week 2 slate posted on Patreon. That will be posted Saturday morning, and then Sunday morning, I will have my final core plays posted on Patreon. So you can check that out, link down below, and see all that I have to offer over there if that does interest you. But yeah, guys, let's go ahead and take a look at this Week 2 slate. We will start off at quarterback like we always do. So at the top, I do want to start with Lamar Jackson. He is one of the guys that I like at the top of this quarterback position. It's hard not to like Lamar Jackson. In my opinion, he's in play every single week, no matter how good the matchup is or how bad the matchup is. He could be facing the best defense in the league, and Lamar would still be in play for me. He's pretty much, him and Christian McCaffrey are 2 guys that I will pretty much just play every week. I just think they're matchup proof. They're going to score and put up fantasy points regardless. We pretty much got like a bad game from Lamar in Week 1 against the Browns, and he still gave us 27.5 Draftkings points. Only threw for 275 yards, 3 touchdowns, just 45 rushing yards. Like, that is kind of a floor game for Lamar. You'll see this guy go out there and, throw for close to 300 yards, almost, get 100 rushing yards. He legit has, close to 40-point upside. We've seen him go for, 35, 37, 38 Draftkings points. This is a fantastic matchup against Houston. Right now, this game does have one of the highest totals on the slate. Houston's defense and their secondary, I don't expect to be too good this season. I like Lamar a lot here. This game has a lot of shootout potential if the Texans can keep it close. Right now, I think the Ravens are favored by like 7 or by 8. So there is a chance that maybe the Ravens get a lead here. But even late in the game, if they do get a lead, like, they'll still run with Lamar. Like, obviously, they're going to be handing it off to Mark Ingram, handing it off to J.K. Dobbins. But, they'll run read options with Lamar. They'll run draws with him. Like, he's going to run the ball probably 8 to 10 times. He's going to throw the ball probably close to 25 to 30 times. Lamar is one of the most elite fantasy players when it comes to floor and ceiling. Like, even on his bad weeks, he's still giving you like 25 DK points, and we know he's got that 35, close to 40-point ceiling. I know he's really expensive, but this is kind of another slate where you have a lot of underpriced guys at running back and at receiver, mainly receiver, that we'll talk about. So it should be pretty easy to build around Lamar if you want to go that route. If I'm going to pay up for either him or Mahomes, it's definitely going to be Lamar for me. I don't mind Mahomes, but I would prefer Lamar if I'm going to go to one of those 2 top-tier guys. But then you get down to the 6K range, and there's a couple guys that I really like here, 3 that I really want to talk about. So first off, Dak Prescott, 6,800 at home against the Falcons. I love the spot for Dak Prescott. Dak was always a guy that played much better at home, dating back to last season and the year before that. Like, he has always played well at home, always had better home splits. He's another guy that just gets a fantastic matchup. The Falcons, their defense, probably going to have one of the worst defense in the league if I had to guess. Their pass defense is not going to be good at all. They just got torched by Russell Wilson and the Seahawks last week. I know Prescott was kind of disappointing on Sunday night against the Rams, but I would expect a huge bounce-back game for him this week. Just such a good spot. He's expected to be, one of the top fantasy QBs this season, and for good reason. Has an elite offense, has a ton of weapons. CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Amari Cooper, Zeke in the backfield. Like, this team is just loaded offensively, has a pretty good offensive line as well that can, give him time to throw. We know Dak, another guy that, has rushing upside, can get you 50, 60 rushing yards. I like him a lot at 6,800. I think he has a lot of upside here. This game right now does have the highest total on the slate. I believe the Cowboys are only favored by like 4 as well. So it's expected to be a high-scoring game, and it's expected to be a close game as well. Really just, what we're looking for in DFS. So love Dak here. And on the other side, I think Matt Ryan is definitely in play as well. Matt Ryan was a guy that I liked a lot last week. We kind of ran good. I was watching that game pretty much the whole game, and Matt Ryan, he did not look good the first half. But in the second half, he kind of turned it on. He was able to, really come through in garbage time. I think he got 2 touchdowns late in the game. They were down by 20 points. They were just kind of clawing back, and Matt Ryan did get 2 touchdowns late in the game. He threw for 450 yards, threw the ball 54 times. That was one of the reasons I liked Ryan so much last week. This Falcons offense is just so pass-heavy. Ryan's going to throw the ball, 40 to 50 times a game. This could be a spot where they're trailing once again, so we could see them have to throw, more than they typically would. Matt Ryan doesn't give you some of the, he doesn't give you that scrambling upside, that rushing upside like Dak does, like Lamar does. But when he's going to throw the ball as much as he is, he's almost a lock to get to 300-point bonus. I'm pretty sure he threw for over 300 yards almost every game last season. I feel like he has a 15-point floor. Even if he's not getting touchdowns, he's still going to probably throw for over 300 yards. And when you factor in, 300 yards, that's 12 fantasy points plus the 3-point bonus you get on Draftkings. That's a 15-point floor. I mean, his ceiling, he might not have that 35-point ceiling that I feel like Lamar and Dak kind of have, but I mean, Matt Ryan, just such a high floor play. Even on his bad weeks, he's probably going to give you 20 DK points. He's 6,600. Him and Dak, I think, are both excellent plays in this game. I'm going to be stacking up this game a lot. I like a lot of plays from both sides of this game. If I can only play one of Dak or Matt Ryan, I think I would prefer to go to Dak, but Matt Ryan I do like a lot as well here against Dallas. It's a tougher matchup for him, but another game, expect to be high scoring. Falcons probably going to be playing from behind. I mean, Matt Ryan's a really good play. So those are 2 guys I do like in the, that upper 6K range. 2 guys I've kind of, keyed in on throughout the week. And then, Kyler Murray, I talked about in my first look video. I think Kyler Murray just looks like a fantastic play this week. He's too cheap on DraftKings for 6,100. Really good matchup here at home against Washington. Washington, I don't expect, has a very good defense this season. They do have a very good defensive line. That is one thing I want to note. They have Montez Sweat. They drafted Chase Young. I mean, this defensive line is actually really, really good. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them, get a lot of pressure on Kyler Murray. But honestly, that might be a good thing because Kyler Murray, he's such a good scrambling QB. When he gets pressure, he's just going to look to run. And for us, as guys who are looking to roster Kyler Murray, that's pretty good for his fantasy upside when he's running. We saw him get 91 rushing yards last week against the 49ers. It is Murray, him and Lamar Jackson. I said this in my first look video. Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray are 2 guys that can legit rush for 100 yards every week. They have elite scrambling upside. Murray is incredibly fast, incredibly elusive, and if their good defensive line is going to be getting pressure on Murray, and he's going to have to be scrambling, that could actually be pretty good for his fantasy upside. So, I mean, 6,100, that's just too cheap for Kyler Murray in my opinion. He's probably going to finish the season definitely as a top 10 fantasy QB, if not a top 5 fantasy QB. He's going to consistently give us probably 20, 25 DK points. He got 27 last week, even in a tough matchup against the 49ers. Obviously, much better spot here. Really like Kyler Murray at 6,100. I think he's probably the most underpriced QB on DraftKings. Just looks really good at that price tag. And on Yahoo, I do like him a lot over there as well. He's not as cheap over there. He's $33. He's the same price as Aaron Rodgers. If you're playing on Yahoo, they do have the Sunday night game, so he's the same price as Russell Wilson in that Sunday night game. But I still like Murray a lot at $33 on Yahoo. If you wanted to go to Matt Ryan, you could play him. He is $3 or he's $2 less than Kyler Murray. Dak Prescott, $3 more. Those 3 guys all look like really good plays. You obviously have Lamar at the top that you could go to as well. But that's kind of, in that, in the upper tier and the mid-range, those are the kind of guys I really like there. Now, talking about value, there isn't a ton of great value that I love at QB this week. Under 6K, not a ton of guys that stand out to me, but I think the one guy that does is Mitchell Trubisky. And Mitchell Trubisky, I don't think he's a very good quarterback, but he gets a really good matchup this week at home against the Giants, and he's only 5,500 on DraftKings. He's really cheap on Yahoo as well. I definitely like him as a value quarterback this week. He didn't look great last week, but managed to come through late in the game, lead them to a comeback win. I do believe he had, I think 2 of his 3 touchdowns came in the second half. They might have honestly came in the fourth quarter. I know he kind of produced late in that game. I mean, 5,500 against the Giants. Like, I will definitely play Trubisky this week. I just think the price tag's a little bit too cheap. He's a guy that, does have some rushing upside. Obviously, he doesn't have as much, rushing upside as guys like Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray. Like, Mitchell Trubisky's not going to rush for 90 yards, but, I mean, last week, 26 rushing yards. Like, he can give you 30 to 40 rushing yards. He does have a little bit of speed, a little bit of scrambling potential. Really, the main thing for me, though, is he's facing the Giants, a team I don't expect to be very good at all defensively this season. I don't expect their secondary to be good at all. We just saw them get cooked by Big Ben and the Steelers on Monday night. So as a punt play, if you want to go cheap at quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky is the one guy that I do like for cheap at 5,500. Those are kind of the 5 QBs that I've really keyed in on as the week's gone on. There's other guys who could target, though. Like, I don't mind Dwayne Haskins as another punt option, 5,100. Most likely going to be playing from behind. Like, he's a guy you could look to for cheap. That's probably it, though, under 6K. Now, there's some other options you could look to in this mid-range. Like, between Dak and Matt Ryan, you do have Josh Allen facing the Dolphins, so I think that is a really good spot for Josh Allen. Tom Brady, I expect a big game from him this week against the Panthers. This Panthers team, definitely going to be a defense we want to pick on this season, so, I have interest in Brady, but the 5 guys I mentioned, those are the 5 that, I've really keyed in on as the week's gone on, so that's what I'm liking at quarterback. Let's move on to running back now. So Christian McCaffrey at the top. If you want to play him this week, by all means, go ahead. It is a very tough matchup, though. It's probably one of the toughest matchups you can get. Kamara did have a good game last week against the Bucks, but he was not efficient at all. I think he had like 12 or 13 carries and only had like 16 rushing yards. Like, he barely rushed for over 1 yard a carry. Like, this Tampa Bay run defense is elite. They were elite against the run last season. It seems like they're going to be pretty stout against the run again this season. But it's Christian McCaffrey. I mean, he's going to touch the ball probably 25 times. It was definitely a concern that he only got 4 targets last week. He was not involved in the passing game nearly as much as I thought he would be. He still got 23 touches, though. Still got 26 touches overall. Did find the end zone twice last week. Look, if you want to play Christian McCaffrey, by all means, go ahead. I had like 60% of him last week. I don't think I'm going to be as heavy on him this week as I was last week, but I will still have exposure to McCaffrey. He is never someone that I full fade. If I'm playing at least 3 or 5 lineups, like, I'm probably going to have McCaffrey in at least one lineup. If I'm playing like 20 lineups, I still want to get probably at least 20 to 30% of McCaffrey. Honestly, I don't think he's going to be too popular this week either. Like, he's probably in tournaments going to be like 20% owned, which is pretty low for McCaffrey. So this is a week where you can definitely go heavy on McCaffrey and get way overweight on the field if you want to do that. I think there's a lot of other good options at running back, so McCaffrey, by all means, is not like a guy you just have to lock in. But we know the upside he has. The workload's going to be there, and although he wasn't as involved in the passing game last week as I would like, still got 26 touches, still getting a ton of usage, barely coming off the field. By all means, feel free to pay up for Christian McCaffrey, but there's 2 guys I really like below him. Zeke and Derrick Henry are the 2 guys that really stand out to me this week. So Zeke at 8,200 against the Falcons. This is just a fantastic spot for Zeke as well. We saw with this Falcons team, their defense, how bad they were against the Seahawks last week. Chris Carson had 2 receiving touchdowns against them. The Falcons have always been a team that, has really struggled to pass-catching running backs, and that kind of happened last week. Zeke, we know, will be involved in the passing game. Got 4 targets against the Rams Sunday night. Usually gets about 4 to 6 targets a week. Another guy that just gets massive volume, probably going to get 25 to 30 touches. High-scoring game, a game that you expect to stay close. I mean, pretty much all the boxes are checked for Zeke this week. If they get to the goal line, Zeke is going to be punching it in. Like, if he was a little bit cheaper, I guess that would be more appealing. But even at 8,200, I still think Zeke is a great pay-up option at running back. By all means, feel free to go to him. Honestly, when you factor in salary, I think I do prefer Zeke over Christian McCaffrey this week. I like Zeke a lot on Yahoo as well. He is expensive over there, but $33. I mean, when he's $6 less than McCaffrey, you are getting some nice savings off of McCaffrey. So definitely like Zeke on Yahoo as well. But Derrick Henry, between Henry and Zeke, I think Henry is my favorite between the two. I like both guys a ton. But man, this is such a good spot for Derrick Henry. At home, massive home favorites here against the Jags. I mean, this Jags defense, it's going to be atrocious. They should probably have one of the worst defenses in the league this season. Their run defense is going to be atrocious if I had to guess. Henry has always done well against the Jags, just dating back to last season. I know he had some massive games against them. I love Derrick Henry here. Got 34 touches last week against Denver in that Monday Night Football game. I mean, his workload is just so secure, especially here, with you expecting them to win this game, with you expect that you expect the Titans to be playing from ahead. I mean, Derrick Henry, he's probably going to get, probably close to 35 touches. Like, they just feed him the ball so much. Like, when they have a lead, like, they just hand the ball off to Derrick Henry 5-10 times in a row. Like, they'll just keep feeding him until, he's tired and has to come off the field. If they get to the goal line, that Derrick Henry is going to be punching it in. It's not like they're going to be throwing the ball at the goal line. They're going to be giving it to Derrick Henry. Like, he feels like a lock for 100 yards and probably multiple touchdowns this week. Zeke, I think, is a very strong play as well, but I just love Derrick Henry in this spot. He should absolutely smash here at home against this brutal Jaguars defense. I think Derrick Henry is the guy I really want to pay for at the top. $7,900 on DK, $34 on Yahoo. He's my favorite guy at the top of the running back position, but if you want to play Zeke, I think Zeke is a great play as well. If I can find a way to get Zeke and Henry in together, that's definitely a route that I'm going to try and go, because those are probably my two favorite options. Like 7K and above, those are the guys I like most at the top. But then in the mid-range, in the 6K range, not much that stands out here. Austin Ekeler, I think, is a little bit too cheap. He was definitely disappointing last week, but he still does feel a little bit too cheap in a game that you expect probably is high scoring here against the Chiefs, a game where you expect the Chargers to most likely be playing from behind and forced to throw. We know Ekeler, although he wasn't involved in the passing game a ton last week, he's a guy that does get involved a lot in the passing game, gets a lot of targets, so you could definitely go to Ekeler. Miles Sanders practiced in full on Thursday, so he looks like he's going to be a full go this week. 6K, if Miles Sanders is fully healthy, 6K is too cheap of a price tag for Sanders if he's going to be fully healthy. This will be news, we'll have to keep an eye on. I'm recording this video late Thursday night, like I said. We'll need to keep an eye on his status heading up to Sunday, but if he's not limited, I think they could limit him a little bit just because it's his first game. But if we get word that, he's going to be full go, not limited, 6K is way too cheap for Miles Sanders. We were all, jumping on playing him last week when he was 6,300, and now that he's, practiced in full and he's only 6K this week, it doesn't feel like anyone's really talking about Miles Sanders. So I think he's someone that, I'm going to have a lot of interest in GPPs, especially if people are going to be scared to go there because he might be scared of his workload. Like, Miles Sanders, as the season goes on, when he starts getting fully healthy, seeing his workload increase, like, he's going to be priced up there with guys like Zeke and Henry. Like, he's going to be 7K, 8K probably every week. We're definitely getting him at a discount, because of the question mark regarding, what his workload is going to be like in his first game. I'll be keeping my eye on his status. At 6K, if he's full go, I think Miles Sanders is a fantastic play at that price tag. Kenyan Drake I have some interest in as well at 5,900 against Washington. Kind of disappointing last week with only 14.5 DK points. But Drake is another guy that I just expect to get massive volume. Like we saw towards the end of last season, after he got traded to Arizona, when he started to get, that full workload, he was putting up massive gains for DFS. Got good volume last week, got 18 touches. Against Washington, I think their front seven is probably one of the best in the league. Like, they're going to be pretty good against the run if I had to guess. But Drake just gets so much volume that I think he is definitely in play, at a $5,900 salary. But it's hard for me to go to Drake, over someone like Jonathan Taylor. I know Jonathan Taylor is going to be popular this week, but I think this is chalk that I'm just going to eat. He's just way too cheap, man. 5,700. He got insane volume in the passing game last week. 6 targets, 6 catches, 67 yards. Also got 9 carries for 22 yards. We saw that, Marlon Mack did get hurt last week in this game. Marlon Mack, it was already announced that he's been placed on IR and he's going to be out for the season. And they've already come out and said that Jonathan Taylor is going to be their starting running back. He looked great last week after Mack went out. Like I said, he was very involved in the passing game, which is something we love to see. With Draftkings being full PPR scoring, you want running backs that are involved in the passing game, and that's the case with Taylor. I like the matchup as well against Minnesota. Like, normally we think Minnesota elite defense, but, man, they did not look good last week against the Packers. They lost a lot of guys in their secondary. They lost Everson Griffin, who's now on the Cowboys. I'm pretty sure Danielle Hunter was also out last week. So that's two guys on their defensive line that, we know Griffin's not going to be, playing, obviously not on the team anymore, but there's a chance Danielle Hunter's out as well. Like, this is actually a pretty good spot for Jonathan Taylor. I don't think this Vikings defense is going to be nearly as good as they were last season. 5,700, like, with Mac now on IR, we're going to see Jonathan Taylor, his workload is just going to be through the roof. I assume he probably gets about 20 touches this week, if not more. He's going to see his price increase. Like, next week, if he has a good game this week, which is very likely, he's probably going to be like $7K next week, and then maybe, his price even rises more after that. We want to hop on him now while he's only 5,700. The price tag is going to start going up, now that he's the clear number one back. I like him a lot. I think this is chalk that I'm just going to be eating. Both sides, I think Taylor's way too cheap. He's only coming in at $19 on Yahoo, so I think he looks like, a great play over on Yahoo as well. I really like Jonathan Taylor. Just one of the clear plays this week. A guy in cash games, he should for sure be one of the first guys you put in your cash lineup, and even in GPPs, I would want to have a lot of exposure to Taylor. I think he has a ton of upside here, and like I said, just too cheap for the volume that he should get. So I really like him in the 5K range. And then there's two guys I want to hit on at 5,200, Ronald Jones and Melvin Gordon. So Ronald Jones, it was pretty clear he was the number one back last week. Shady McCoy, Leonard Fournette really didn't get much work at all. I think Leonard Fournette got, I think Leonard Fournette got one touch, or maybe it was McCoy that only got one touch. One of them got 6 touches, and the other one only got 1 touch. I think it was McCoy that only got 1, and then Leonard Fournette got 6 touches. On the other hand, though, Ronald Jones, he got 19 touches last week against the Saints. It is clear that he is their number one running back right now. Even though they have McCoy and they have Fournette, it seems like Ronald Jones is going to be their guy, and that was a tough matchup last week against the Saints. Honestly, the Saints probably have one of the better run defenses in the league. Pretty good defense overall. Now he gets to face the Panthers, one of the worst run defenses in the league. I'm pretty sure they were dead last against the run last season. Their defense overall is just going to be atrocious this year. This is a fantastic spot for the Bucs. I like a lot of guys from the Bucs. I think Brady is a really good play this week. I think Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, if he plays, are also good options. And Ronald Jones, I like a ton here. I mean, this Panthers defense, we're going to want to target running backs against the Panthers. We saw what Josh Jacobs did to them last week. I think Ronald Jones has massive upside. And at 5,200, with him priced close to Jonathan Taylor, a lot of people are going to be going to Jonathan Taylor. I think Taylor is obviously a really good play, but I definitely want to have some exposure to Ronald Jones. I think he's a really good GPP option. And honestly, if you wanted to play Ronald Jones in cash, I don't think that's a bad play at all. I think he has the upside. It seems like the workload is secure right now, so definitely like him a lot at 5,200. And then Melvin Gordon as well, I think is also a strong play and a guy that you can definitely target for GPPs. So Phillip Lindsay did get hurt Monday night against the Titans, was not able to return for that game. He did not practice on Thursday. As I'm recording this video late Thursday night, that's the latest report that we got on Lindsay. It seems to me that all signs point to him missing this game, given that he didn't practice on Thursday. I'm assuming Lindsay's going to be out, and if that's the case, Melvin Gordon should be looking at a pretty heavy workload this week. Got 18 touches last week after Lindsay went out. Obviously Lindsay, I think, played the first half, but he got hurt in the second half early on in the third quarter. Gordon did finish with 16.6 DK points, 15 carries for 78 yards, did have a rushing touchdown, also got 3 catches for 8 yards. Now, it is a brutal matchup this week, without a doubt. I mean, this Pittsburgh defense is elite. They probably have the best defense overall in the NFL. But for me, it's just a price tag and it's a workload. I think Gordon, if Lindsay's out, Gordon's going to get 20 touches, if not more. He'll be involved in the passing game as well. Even if they're trailing, they will definitely pass the ball to Melvin Gordon. He's a pretty good receiving back. And he's 5,200. That's a little bit too cheap in my opinion for a running back that's probably going to get 20 touches, if not more. I know it's a tough matchup, but I definitely like Melvin Gordon in tournaments. I think he still has upside here, even in a tough matchup, and the workload should be so secure. Obviously, Royce Freeman is not going to be taking away touches from Melvin Gordon. I'm pretty sure after Lindsay got hurt, Royce Freeman, he still barely played. It was just the Melvin Gordon show. Gordon was on the field a ton. I expect that to be the case Sunday, if Lindsay winds up out. So definitely like Melvin Gordon as well at 5,200. Those are two guys I do have my eye on in the 5K range. But I think that's probably it for running back, guys. I don't see much value here under 5K that I want to go to. Benny Snell, I was targeting at first, but James Conner practiced in full, so I really don't want to go to Benny Snell now. It seems like James Conner's going to play. So let's move on to wide receiver. So at the top of the wide receiver position, there's a lot of good options here. I think Davante Adams against the Lions. I don't see the Lions really, they don't have Darius Slay anymore. Like, they just don't have anyone that's going to stop Davante Adams. I mean, just had an amazing game last week. 44 DraftKings points, 14 catches, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, he is just going to be a complete monster this season. Very likely he finishes as the top scoring wide receiver overall this year. Should just get massive volume. He's obviously Aaron Rodgers' go-to guy. I mean, Rodgers really has no one else to throw the ball to. They don't have really any good tight ends. I mean, MVS, he has Allen Lazard, but obviously those guys aren't going to be taking targets away from Davante Adams. Davante Adams is going to get over 10 targets a week if I had to guess. He's a really good play. It's hard to prioritize him though over Zeke and Henry. I think I would definitely play Zeke and Henry over Davante Adams, but I think Adams is a great play this week once again. DeAndre Hopkins I like as well. Obviously I'm going to be on Kyler Murray a ton, so I'm definitely going to have exposure to Hopkins. He got massive volume as well last week. 16 targets, 14 catches, 151 yards. Seems pretty clear that he's going to be a usage monster once again this season. Even going to the Cardinals, playing with a new quarterback, playing under a new offense, it seems like Hopkins is still going to get a ton of targets, going to get a ton of volume every week. Much better matchup this week against Washington. Much easier spot. Having to face the 49ers, that was actually a pretty tough matchup for Hopkins. Really good secondary. Not the case this week against Washington. So definitely like Hopkins as well, especially if you have Kyler Murray, feel free to stack him up with DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins and Adams are probably the two guys I like most above 7K. I think Julio Jones as well in that game, that expects to be high scoring. Julio's always in play for me, especially, when he's playing in a dome. He just seems to always play well in a dome, whether that's at home or, in Dallas where, they play in a dome. It's just a game you expect to be high scoring. Atlanta probably going to be playing from behind, going to have to throw a ton. Julio's going to get massive volume. He was great last week. Still put up 27.7 DK points even without scoring a touchdown. If he finds the end zone, once, maybe twice, very likely Julio's going to get probably 6 to 8 catches for over 100 yards. So if he finds the end zone once or twice, he's going to put up a monster game. I do like Julio as well, above 7K. Those are probably my 3 favorite guys if I'm paying up. But then, in the 6K range, there's a lot of guys I like here. Allen Robinson against the Giants, I definitely like, especially if you want to play Trubisky. I think stacking him up with Allen Robinson makes a ton of sense. Mike Evans, I like a ton. So one injury we'll definitely need to watch heading up to Sunday is the status of Chris Godwin. So right now, Mike Evans also listed as questionable, but I don't expect he misses this game. He was limited on Thursday, but a lot of times guys will be limited throughout the week and they'll still play. But Chris Godwin's definitely, a kind of a red flag right now. He is in the concussion protocol. We don't have any update on his status. He did not practice on Thursday. There is a good possibility that Chris Godwin does not play this week, and if Chris Godwin does wind up out, Mike Evans for 6,400 is probably going to be one of my favorite receiver plays on the board. He's just going to be way too cheap, man. If Godwin's out, it is going to be clear that Evans is going to be, the go-to guy for Tom Brady. I know Evans wasn't targeted a ton last week, but that was a brutal matchup against Marshawn Lattimore and a really good Saints defense. Now he gets to face the Panthers, who have one of the worst defenses overall and one of the worst secondaries overall. Mike Evans should just absolutely go off this week. Huge bounce back spot for him. If Godwin winds up out, I'm going to be all over Mike Evans. I think he's a fantastic play at 6,400. Right now, I'm not going to include him in my early core plays, but I might put him in my final core depending on what happens with Godwin. You can get access to my final core plays that I post on Patreon. Those will be posted Sunday morning. You can check that out, link down below if you do have interest in that. But Evans I like a lot this week, and Amari Cooper, he looks like he's going to be pretty popular this week, but I think he's just too cheap on DraftKings. 6,300 against this weak Falcons secondary, weak Falcons defense, in a game that projects a shootout. How do you not like Amari Cooper at this price tag? Even in a tough matchup last week against the Rams and against Jalen Ramsey, Amari Cooper still got 14 targets, 10 catches for 81 yards, got massive volume. You once again should expect massive volume from Cooper. Another guy that was limited in practice, but like I said, guys, pretty much everyone's limited at this point. Guys get limited throughout the week. Really, the only concerns, when guys miss practice, that's when we have to be concerned. If they're limited, I'm not really concerned about that. So I'm expecting Cooper to play this week. I like him a ton at 6,300. If you're playing Dak or not, I think Cooper's a fantastic play. You can play Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and then run it back with Cooper. or you can stack up Dak and Cooper and then run it back with Julio or run it back with Ridley. Like, there's just so many viable ways to stack this game. You could even, stack up like Ryan and Julio and then run it back with Zeke, or even if you want to play like Todd Gurley, I wouldn't mind that. But Amari Cooper, I just like a ton at 6,300. Should smash against this Falcons secondary. They have no one that can cover him. It's a fantastic game environment, high-scoring game you expect to at least stay close, in my opinion. That should stay close. I think right now Dallas is favored by 4 last time I checked. 4.5, so Dallas 4.5 point favorites here. Should be a close game. Cooper's just too cheap, man. 6,300 in this matchup, in this game environment. He should not be this cheap. So love Amari Cooper this week. I really like him on Yahoo as well. He's also coming in very cheap over on Yahoo. Same price as Calvin Ridley, same price as DJ Shark. Like, definitely give me Amari Cooper over those guys. Although I do really like Ridley as well. I still prefer Cooper over them. Cooper just looks like a fantastic play on both sides. I mean, he should just put up a monster game this week. You could definitely, pivot off of Cooper, though, and go to maybe someone like Michael Gallup. Gallup is coming in cheaper than Cooper. Gallup is 5,600, so if you want to make that tournament pivot, by all means, go ahead. I think it's a really good spot for Gallup as well. I just think Cooper's too cheap. The fact that he's only 6,300 against this Falcons secondary in this game with such a high total, like, I was expecting him to be like 7K, 7,200. Just mispriced on both sides, in my opinion. So, love him in the 6K range. Another injury we're going to need to watch is A.J. Brown. We'll talk about Corey Davis, who I'll definitely like as a value if he's out. It looks like A.J. Brown does have a bone bruise in his knee, and his availability, it's kind of up in the air for Sunday. We'll have to wait and see here. If Brown plays, I probably won't be playing him. I don't like him a ton if he plays. But if he's out, someone like Corey Davis, who we'll talk about, is a really appealing option. But I think that's kind of it for the 6K range. Now, going down to the 5K range, there's a lot of good plays here as well. T.Y. Hilton I like a ton this week against Minnesota. We saw what Devontae Adams did to them last week, what Aaron Rodgers did to this Minnesota secondary. Like, Minnesota right now is just running out a bunch of rookies. This is a fantastic spot for T.Y. Hilton, playing back at home in the Dome. We know T.Y. Hilton has always played much better at home in the Dome. He didn't have a good game last week, but still got 9 targets. The volume should still be there. And even with Phillip Rivers at quarterback, I still think Hilton has upside with Rivers at QB. 5,700, I like T.Y. Hilton a lot for tournaments. I don't think he's going to be popular at all this week, so definitely someone I will for sure be on. I like him a lot in GPPs, whether you want to stack him up with Rivers or just play him by himself. I think Hilton's a great play at 5,700. I think Keenan Allen also looks really good at 5,700. Didn't have a great week last week, but got good volume, 8 targets. With Tyrod Taylor at quarterback, we'll have to see how Keenan Allen does this year. I think he can still have a very good season, still be a pretty productive receiver for DFS. We know he was kind of a target monster last season, getting almost double-digit targets every week with Phillip Rivers at QB. Like I said, we'll have to see how he does with Tyrod. Their offense didn't look great last week, but I think, you would expect them to put up points here against the Chiefs, a game where, they're probably going to be playing from behind. They're going to need to put up points to keep up with this Chargers, or with this good Chiefs offense. The Chiefs are going to put up points for sure. Right now, the Chargers, even at home, they're still pretty big underdogs. So I do like Keenan Allen a lot as well. I think on Yahoo, that's where he looks the most appealing. He's coming in very cheap on Yahoo, only $18, same price as Devontae Parker, same price as D-Jax, Marvin Jones. I definitely like Allen over on Yahoo at just $18. I think he looks like a really good play at that price tag. And on Draftkings as well, $5,700. I think he looks like a very good option as well. Another guy that just feels too cheap this week, Michael Gallup, as a pivot off of a chalky Cooper. If you want to go that route, I have no problems with Michael Gallup at 5,600. If you're playing Trubisky, I think stacking him up with Anthony Miller makes a ton of sense. Anthony Miller had a really good game last week. Would expect another good game from him this week against a weak Giants defense. So I definitely like Miller at 5,200. And then talking about some of the value that we have under 5K, there's a couple guys I want to hit on here before we move on to tight end. So first guy, CeeDee Lamb, 4,700. Really good value play at receiver this week. Got good volume last week. Was pretty involved in the offense, even in his first game with the Cowboys. Got 6 targets, 5 catches for 59 yards. The Cowboys did lose their starting tight end. Blake Jarwin did tear his ACL in that game, so he is going to be out for the season, which is honestly, it's a good thing for CeeDee Lamb. Obviously terrible for Jarwin to tear his ACL, but in terms of CeeDee Lamb and his fantasy value, he does see a boost with Jarwin now out. I think, Dak's going to be looking to Lamb, looking to Amari Cooper, and looking to Michael Gallup. Those should be the 3 guys that he targets the most here. fantastic matchup, as we discussed. A game you expect to be very high scoring. Really like CeeDee Lamb at 4,700. This is a guy, obviously, when he was at Oklahoma last year in college, he showed a ton of upside. Was drafted in the first round for a good reason. Incredibly high upside receiver, playing in this explosive Cowboys offense. I really like CeeDee Lamb for just 4,700. I think he's a really good value play at receiver this week. And then Deontay Johnson, another guy that I like, got massive volume last week. It is clear that he is going to be the number 2 receiver for the Steelers behind Juju Smith-Schuster. Obviously, Juju had a massive game last week against the Giants, but Johnson still got 10 targets, only 6 catches for 57 yards, so it was kind of a disappointing game for him, just finishing with 10.7 DK points. But the volume was there. Getting Big Ben at quarterback is a massive boost for the Steelers offense. Like, whether you think Big Ben is good or not, like he's so much better than the guys that they were running out there. Whether it's Mason Rudolph or Devlin Hodges, like you don't want those guys out there. You want Big Ben under center. Big Ben's a good quarterback. He can get his guys the ball. We saw that last week. Juju had a massive game. Johnson got 10 targets. For 4,500, Deontay Johnson's just too cheap, man. If he's going to get 8 to 10 targets a week, which is very likely, like there's just no reason that he should be this cheap on DraftKings. I think he is going to be pretty popular this week, so if you're playing cash games, I think he's a guy you probably want to look to for cash games and tournaments. I still think there's upside for him. Could have had a much better week last week if he, if he caught some of those other balls thrown his way. So I still like Deontay Johnson a lot. Him and CeeDee Lamb I think are great values. Since we already have Cooper in there, I don't want to plug Lamb in there as well. So we'll definitely go with Johnson as our value receiver. But if you want to go to CeeDee Lamb at 4,700, I think he is a great play as well. Even Paris Campbell at 4,500 also I think looks like a pretty good option. Had a good week last week. Was targeted a ton. It seems like he's going to be the clear number 2 receiver behind T.Y. Hilton. Both those guys should be looking at probably 8 to 10 targets a week. We talked about how bad this Minnesota secondary is. Not a team we should be afraid taking receivers against. So I do like Campbell. Christian Kirk, I think, is another guy you can definitely target this week. I would expect a big bounce back game from him. Just 1 catch last week for 0 yards. Just 1 DraftKings points last week on 5 targets. I mean, that was a brutal matchup against the 49ers. Expect a big bounce-back game from Christian Kirk. I think at 4,300, if you're playing Kyler Murray and you can't pay up for Hopkins, you can't stack him up with Hopkins, don't be scared to go to Christian Kirk. I know he was bad last week, but this was a guy that showed a lot of upside last season. And although Hopkins is now on this offense, and Hopkins is a very, high-targeted guy, a guy that's going to get a lot of volume, Christian Kirk should still be involved in the offense, should still probably get 6 to 8 targets a week. And for 4,300, against a pretty bad Washington secondary, I do have interest in him as well. But, I think we kind of covered everything. I guess, if Godwin winds up out, then Scotty Miller, 4,100, could be viable as well. But yeah, guys, let's hit on tight end real quick. Tight end usually can go through tight end pretty quickly. It's a lot thinner than running back and receiver, not as many options. It's pretty clear where I want to go at tight end this week. I think if I'm paying up, my favorite guy to go to is probably Mark Andrews, and normally Mark Andrews is not someone I like paying up for, but he played way more snaps last week than he did last season. With Hayden Hurst no longer on the Ravens, Andrews was, kind of in a committee. He was still the clear tight end for the Ravens, but he was still in a committee with Nick Boyle and with Hayden Hurst. Well, this season it's just Boyle and Andrews I believe played on close to 80% of the snaps last week as opposed to, 55 to 60%, that he was playing last season. Was only targeted 6 times, but, converted 2 of those into touchdowns. We know Andrews is heavily targeted in the red zone. Very big touchdown threat, can get multiple touchdowns a week. Like, even though Andrews isn't going to go for 150 yards, like, he can easily catch you 5 balls, 70 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Like, do exactly what he did last week. I know he's expensive, but I definitely like Andrews in this high-scoring game. If you want to play Lamar Jackson, feel free to stack him up with Andrews. I don't think that's going to be too popular this week, especially with both guys being so expensive. I don't think many people are going to pay up for both Lamar and Andrews. So I think Andrews, between Kittle, Kelsey, and Andrews, I think Andrews is my favorite guy. Kittle is questionable for this week. Well, that's another big injury we're going to have to watch. If he plays, you could always play George Kittle. Like him and Kelsey, those 2 guys, even Andrews included, like these guys you can play every week. But me personally, if I can only choose one, I think I would prefer Andrews. But if Kittle winds up out, we'll talk about Jordan Reed. I think Jordan Reed could actually be, a punt option you consider at tight end. We'll talk about him in a second. But in the 5K range, there's not much that stands out here. Like, I get Hunter Henry's fine against the Chiefs. You can definitely go there. TJ Hawkinson, especially if Galladay remains out, you could look to Hawkinson. But I like the 4K range once again. I think Hayden Hurst, he disappointed last week, but I like Hayden Hurst a lot this week. I'm going to be right back on him. He ran a ton of routes last week. He played a ton of snaps as well. And although he only got 5 targets, just 3 catches for 38 yards, it was great to see how much he played. It's pretty clear that he's going to pretty much, take over Austin Hooper's role. Like, Hooper was a heavily targeted tight end last season, played on a ton of snaps, ran a ton of routes. That should be the case this year with Hayden Hurst. Better days are ahead for him. Like, he's going to have better games as the season goes on. And I think Dallas last year was actually pretty bad against tight ends. They did lose Van Der Esch. He did get hurt in Sunday night's game. I'm pretty sure he's out for at least like 6 to 8 weeks. Honestly, I can't remember, but I know he's going to be out for this game. So that's, one of their starting linebackers that's out. Obviously, linebackers can defend tight ends. So Hayden Hurst, 4,600. He disappointed for me last week, but I like him a lot again this week. I think, he's going to have better games with how many routes he's running, with how much he's on the field. Like, he's going to have some bigger games as the season goes on. Could happen this week against Dallas in that high-scoring game. So really like Hayden Hurst at 4,600. And then talking about value plays, there's multiple guys I like under 4K this week. So we'll start off first with Logan Thomas. I think he's the clear value at tight end this week, only 3,600. Got 8 targets last week, was heavily involved. Did get 4 catches for 37 yards and a touchdown. Really good matchup for him this week against the Cardinals. The Cardinals were the worst team defensively against tight ends last season. I don't know if much is going to change this year. They did pick up Isaiah Simmons, who obviously can play everywhere on the field. So they should probably improve. I don't think they're going to be as bad this season against tight ends as they were last season. But it's still a pretty good spot for Logan Thomas. Seems like he's going to be heavily involved in this offense. He's a very athletic tight end. He's a very good receiving tight end. Another guy that was on the field a ton, ran a ton of routes. I like him a lot at 3,600, especially because, I'm going to be playing Kyler Murray. I'm probably going to be playing Hopkins as well. It makes sense to run it back from someone from Washington. So that's where Logan Thomas will definitely come into play for me. I think he's probably the cash game tight end. It's either him or Hurst in cash games for me. And given the savings, I probably would prefer Logan Thomas. So really like Logan Thomas for cheap. Chris Herndon as well. Like, he didn't have a great game last week, but the Jets just have such a bad offense. Like, Sam Darnold has no one to throw the ball to. I'm pretty sure Jamison Crowder got hurt during this week, and he was limited in practice, or he did not practice on Thursday. I can't remember. So there's a chance that Jamison Crowder winds up out this week. I mean, you should expect Herndon to probably get 8, close to 10 targets a week. Like, he's going to be a massive volume tight end. I know it's another brutal matchup against the 49ers, but Herndon's just going to get so much volume. The Jets, who expect to be playing from behind in this game, I think you can definitely go back to Herndon once again at 3,400. I think he's another value worth considering. And then lastly, if George Kittle winds up out, we'll have to keep an eye on this heading up to Sunday. But if Kittle's out, Jordan Reed, only 2,600, definitely could be viable here. Obviously, didn't get much volume last week, not a ton of looks, just 2 targets, 2 catches for 12 yards. But that was with Kittle playing. Now with Kittle potentially out, we could definitely see Jordan Reed, his role increase in this offense. Jordan Reed, I know he's not the same guy, but man, 3 to 4 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, when he was still on Washington, like, this was one of the top tight ends in the league. This dude would just go out there and crush every week. I played him a ton when he was, healthy. Injuries have derailed him just throughout his career. He's always had injury problems. It seems as though he's fully healthy now, though. He's on a new team. He's with a good offense. There's a chance that Kittle misses this week, so definitely have interest in Jordan Reed at only 2,600. If Kittle winds up out, if he winds up out, I will definitely have exposure to Reed as a punt tight end. But I think we covered tight end, guys. We'll hit on defense very, very quickly. I don't spend too much time on defense. I say this all the time, guys. Like, I just really play whatever defense fits into my lineup. Defense is already such a hard position to predict. Like, a defense can be in a great spot and they go out there and score 3 fantasy points. A defense could be in a terrible spot and they go out there and get 2 pick sixes and score 15 points. So, like, you just never know with defense. I usually like to target cheap defenses that are playing at home against quarterbacks that'll turn the ball over. So, maybe the Giants against Trubisky, if you're not playing Trubisky, the Giants could get some turnovers here, 2,400. The Colts are playing at home, 2,500 against the Vikings. You could look there. The Eagles at home against the Rams, 2,600. Don't mind that. Let's see. I mean, usually you want to try and target teams that are going to get pressure on the quarterback. I expect Washington to have to be getting a lot of pressure on Kyler Murray. But Kyler Murray is just such a good scrambling QB that even though, they may be getting pressure on him, they still might not be able to get sacks. So I probably won't be going to Washington. So, it's just, I don't spend too much time on defense, guys. Like, I wish they would just get rid of defense, just give us another flex spot. Like, picking defenses just fucking sucks, man. I hate rostering defenses. Like, I just build out my lineups, and whatever salary I have left, I'll just pick the defense that I like most with the salary I have left. Obviously, I'm not going to be playing guys against my defense, but, I guess if I have 2,100 left, I'm fine playing the Dolphins as long as I don't have any Bills in my lineup. Like, defense just so random, guys. So that's really my thoughts there. Just play whatever defense fits into your lineup. I wouldn't, focus too much on it. Rarely do I pay up for defense unless, I just have the salary, but normally I never pay up for defense. So yeah, guys, that's just my my final thoughts on this week 2 slate. These are kind of the core plays I like heading into Friday morning when I'm posting this video. If you do want to get my final core plays, I will post those Sunday morning over on Patreon. I will have my full slate breakdown article posted on Patreon as well. That will go up Saturday morning. So if you want to check out the Patreon and see all that I have to offer, it is linked down below in the description. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit the like button before you do get out of here. Hit the subscribe button as well. Be sure to click that notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. You'll never miss out on any of my new videos. Obviously, uploading a ton of content right now. Trying to put up a ton of videos on the YouTube channel. So would appreciate it if you would subscribe. But I think that's it, guys. Best of luck this week. Really appreciate you watching. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. We'll see you in the next one, guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.